I'm a paramedic in Elmdale, a suburb I could draw in my sleep. 30,000 souls, one Walmart, two stoplights, and a strip mall that's been half empty since 2009. So when dispatch called me to a cardiac arrest on Maple Lane at 3:47 a.m., I didn't think twice. I knew the house. Everyone did. Number 22 had been empty for years. A foreclosure with a no trespassing sign rusted into the chain-link fence, and a lawn so overgrown the dandelions had evolved into small trees. But the address came through clear on my MDT, and voices are voices. My partner Jenna mumbled something about squatters as we swung onto the road, the ambulance's headlights swallowing the fog that always settled in the low spots near the creek. The driveway was cracked and choked with weeds, but the front door was wide open. A single light burned in the living room, yellow and weak, like a candle in a hurricane lamp. No signs of forced entry, no broken windows, just that door hanging open like a mouth mid-sentence. We grabbed the gurney and the jump bag, and I remember the sound my boots made on the front porch. A wet, sucking noise like stepping on something that had been dead long enough to soften. The air inside was wrong. Not just the staleness of a closed-up house. That's a dry, dusty smell like old books and mouse droppings. This was heavy and humid, thick enough to taste, and it had a low note beneath it, something metallic and sweet like a penny left on a tongue. The living room was almost empty, a single wooden chair in the center of the floor, facing the wall, and a table with a rotary phone on it. The phone's handset was off the hook, and the dial tone hummed in the silence like an accusation. And on the floor, lying on his back with his arms at his sides, was a man in a paramedic's uniform. I knew that uniform. It was the same dark blue as mine, same reflective yellow stripes, same department patch sewn on the right shoulder. But the name tag said O'Malley, and we don't have an O'Malley in Elmdale. I knelt down, and Jenna started calling vitals, but the man's eyes were open and staring at the water-stained ceiling, and his chest wasn't moving. I pressed 2 fingers to his carotid, felt for 10 seconds, found nothing. Rigor had already set in. He'd been dead at least a few hours. There was no trauma, no blood, no sign of struggle. He just looked like he'd lain down and stopped. Then the phone clicked. I spun around. The handset was still on the table, but the dial tone was gone. In its place was a faint, rhythmic sound, a wet, labored breathing like someone trying to breathe through a mouthful of water. I picked it up. The line was dead. No static, no hum, nothing, just my own breath echoing back. Jenna said, "Mike, we need to call this in. That's a dead guy in our uniform, and I don't like it." She was right. I pulled out my personal phone, no service. All 4 bars, but the data wouldn't load, calls wouldn't connect. Jenna's too. She held hers up, the screen glowing in the dark, and shook her head. That's when the lights flickered, not all at once. The lamp in the living room dimmed, then brightened, dimmed again in a pattern that didn't feel random. It was a Morse code I couldn't read, a message I couldn't decode. And then from somewhere deeper in the house, past the living room, past the hall, down toward the basement stairs, I heard a door open. It wasn't a creak or a slam. It was a sound of sliding, a heavy wood door being pulled across a carpeted floor. The kind of sound that says someone is there and they are moving toward you. We should have left. I knew that. Every training, every instinct screamed at me to get out, get back to the ambulance, call for backup. But the dead man on the floor wore my job, my city, my clothes, and the phone had called us here. It had called in a code to dispatch, a code that should have been impossible because no one had been in this house for years. Someone knew how to dial 911. Someone knew what to say. I walked toward the hall. Jenna followed, muttering curses under her breath. The hallway was lined with family photos in dusty frames, a woman with dark hair, a man in a firefighter's dress uniform, 2 kids with missing teeth and summer tans. I stopped at one photo, a faded Polaroid taped to the wall. The woman was laughing, holding a birthday cake with a single candle. The man had his arm around her. Behind them, in the background of the photo, was a child's bedroom door slightly ajar, and in the crack of the door a small white hand. I couldn't look away. The hand was too pale, too still, and it was reaching out from the darkness of that room like it was reaching through time. I took the photo off the wall. On the back, in ink that had faded to brown, someone had written, June 14, 1993. Sam's 6th birthday. She didn't want to come out. Jenna said, "We have to go now." But I was already at the basement door. It was the old heavy kind, solid wood, painted a dark green that had chipped and peeled like scabs. The knob was warm. I turned it, and the door swung open onto a staircase that descended into absolute black. The air that rose was cold and thick, and it smelled like wet earth and iron and something else, something that made my teeth ache. I leaned over and listened. From the bottom of the stairs, a child's voice said, "Are you the one who came to fix me?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Jenna grabbed my arm and pulled me back, and the door swung shut on its own, not hard, just a soft click like someone closing a drawer. The phone in the living room started ringing again. One ring, two, three. I walked back and picked it up, and I heard my own voice. It was tired, hoarse, like I'd been running for hours. It said, "Don't tell them where you found the body. They'll make you come back." The line went dead. I looked at Jenna. Her face was gray in the low light, and she was staring at the dead paramedic on the floor. I followed her gaze. His hand was open, palm up, and in it was a piece of paper folded small. I knelt down and pried it loose. It was a torn page from a notebook, lined and yellowed. On it, in a child's handwriting, was a single sentence: "The paramedic before you didn't listen either." I put the paper in my pocket. We left the house without calling it in, without bagging the body, without any of the protocols I'd sworn to follow. The ambulance drove itself back to the station. I didn't say a word to Jenna, and she didn't say a word to me. But I could feel the paper in my pocket, heavy as a stone, and I could smell that basement smell in my hair and my clothes no matter how many times I showered. That was a week ago. I've looked up the property records. Number 22 Maple Lane was owned by a family named O'Malley. The husband was a firefighter, died in a structure collapse in 1994. The wife and two kids moved away, or maybe they didn't. I found a news article from July of 1993, a brief blurb about a missing girl named Sam O'Malley, last seen in her bedroom. The article says police searched the house, the yard, the creek. They found nothing. I called the non-emergency line at the county clerk's office yesterday, asked about the property. The woman on the phone said the house is still owned by the O'Malley estate, and no one has lived there since the disappearance. But she hesitated before she said it, and in the pause I heard the silence of a phone line that should have been dead. Tonight I'm sitting in my living room at 3:47 a.m. and the phone is ringing. It's my work phone, the one Dispatch uses, the one I keep on the charger by the door. I'm not going to answer it. I'm not going to pick up. But it keeps ringing, and every time it stops, it starts again, and my caller ID is showing the same thing every time. Emergency, Maple LN. I already know what it is. It's the rotary phone from the living room calling from a line that was disconnected in 1995. And behind the ringing, if I listen close enough, if I put my ear to the receiver, I can hear a child breathing and a door swinging open and the faint, wet sound of someone stepping onto a stair that was never built to hold weight. I won't answer. But I don't have to, because I already know the voice on the other end won't be Sam O'Malley. It'll be me. The me who went down those stairs, the me who never came back up. And if I don't answer, if I just let it ring, then that version of me will have to walk out of that basement on his own. And he's been waiting a long, long time.